Let's just count.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Fuck Trump.
Yeah,
For those of you listening who obviously don't know what we just did, we just took a fuck Trump shot of whiskey. Hey everyone, welcome to the Thunk Tank podcast. Thanks for downloading. So I'm sure you've heard the news from mid-February that Trump has declared a national emergency in order to build his border wall. If you haven't heard about it, you'll still be able to follow along with this episode, but we were concerned by this, and we decided to do a sort of impromptu episode about this because in terms of politics, if you've listened to us, we're pretty flexible in how we think, and there are a lot of reasons to be concerned about what the left has to say and a lot of reasons to be concerned about what the right has to say. But specifically, this seemed different. This was a very unique usage of a unique power of the presidency to declare a national emergency. And obviously, this was not a real emergency. This is clearly politically motivated. And one of the things that concerned me was Nancy Pelosi. She didn't criticize the overreach of the executive branch. She said herself, Mr. President, if you want to declare an emergency, you should do it about, gun safety. And so indicating that it's not a principled reason that she's against it, it's a political reason. And she would use this power for her own reasons that she thinks are righteous. So it gets complicated, but either way, it's a really bad move by Trump, and I'm happy with it. And so we talk about that, and we kind of just go over the recent events and just sort of analyze Trump. So that's pretty much this episode. Check us out on Patreon if you want to support us. For as little as $1 an episode, you can hear our drunk tanks. We did do about 15 or 20 minutes extra after this episode for a drunk tank, so check that out on Patreon. Other than that, thanks for listening. See you in the tank.
Attention humans, this is a Thunk Tank. Please insert this podcast directly into your nearest orifice for viewing pleasure.
Okay, you ready? Oh, shit.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Welcome to the Thunk Tank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Come into our Thunk Tank.
Luke, don't switch to the other peanuts.
Welcome to the Thunk Tank. Come in the tank. We're thinking, and we're drinking,
and we're thunked.
Oh my god, I'm probably more beer than man if we go far enough back at this point.
To 0. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, we're live. The tank is fully operational.
So
All right,
5.
so let's just count.
4, 3, 2, 1.
1.
Fuck Trump. All right.
Oh, that's delicious. That's really smooth.
Yeah, that was
For
really
those
good.
of you listening who obviously don't know what we just did, we just took a fuck Trump shot of whiskey.
Which is still legal in this country, I believe, at the moment.
For now.
Until the next national emergency.
It is something worth celebrating, like whether you stand behind saying the sentiment "fuck" to the president or not.
It's
the
not,
fact that
it's
you
not
can say it is
specifically
amazing.
Fuck Trump. It's fuck anyone that tries to seize executive power.
Yeah, that's
Right.
fair. Yeah, I wouldn't care who's in office.
No.
if they're-
I mean specifically, I was just saying it's beautiful because if we were in Istanbul trying to do this and saying "fuck Erdogan," we would actually have a real fear that somebody might knock on our door and charge us with a crime.
I mean, you said it, so you should still be worried about.
Well, the line is
Turkish
just
police.
different here. It's remember when Kathy Griffin, she did the whole headless Trump decapitation thing?
Yeah.
And I think the CIA or FBI or somebody came to talk to her.
Secret Service.
Yeah, Secret Service came to talk to her.
Even though she's on the left, that still went too far.
Well, that's the thing. There is still a line here, but at least we can still say, yeah, this guy's a fucking senile ape.
It's very different to say "fuck Trump" or "fuck his policies" or "fuck what he's doing," versus to insinuate a threat of physical violence.
Yeah. But in either case, either that or just saying, yeah, the hell with that guy. In a lot of other countries, that it wouldn't matter. You would get arrested all the same.
Exactly.
So
anyways,
yeah, you're right. That is
All right,
something.
so now
to
that
appreciate.
we've enjoyed and demonstrated our free speech for the people listening in other countries, like, share, and subscribe, let's exercise that right more so by discussing the hell is going on in the American executive branch this past weekend.
I don't know.
So
Do you want
recording
to?
this on Sunday? Friday, the president just announced. I actually have his quote here, the way he said it.
Oh, please.
We're going to be signing today and registering national emergency. And it's a great thing to do. But it just bugged me that he said we're going to be signing
sounds like how
today
Charlie
and
Kelly
registering
reads.
national emergency, not a national emergency.
Yeah,
It's like
he's been
like
doing
I'm
that
going
more
to
and more.
store.
I've noticed that over the last couple of years. He leaves out prepositions and articles to words.
that's the part that makes me think that a big factor in this whole Trump thing is senility.
It's got to be because
Like he really can't
that's
finish
usually
a sentence.
that's usually something that you work away from. My students where English isn't their first language, they learn how to use prepositions and articles and stuff in their writing and in their
it's
speech.
lazy
They don't
thinking,
lose
right?
them. Yeah, they don't lose those skills.
And what I see is that he begins sentences that he can't end. So he'll like start a thought and then
Yeah.
kind of just throw it away because he can feel that he won't be able to complete the thought.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like diverts to a different thought. So when he's answering a question,
Yeah,
it's kind
it's
of
like ping pong in his own head.
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
a balloon like
Yeah.
farting
But that's-
around going like
That's always been his speech style. Is just stream of consciousness, whatever pops in his head. I think the problem is he doesn't remember where he started as much as he
exactly,
used to.
yeah.
Well, how old is he now?
It's not like he used to be a very measured, like,
That's true.
soft-spoken person, or like a very, I'm going to get to my point, but I'm going to set it up and couch it a certain way, like some speakers. Like, he's always been off the cuff, stream of consciousness, just the next thing that pops in his head, even if it's off topic. But it does seem, even within the same sentence, he kind of loses his place.
But he's
And
also-
I could wrap it up this
He's
way,
also
you
been
know?
feeding his brain Big Macs for the last 70 years. That's
Yeah.
got to take a toll.
I mean, but
Well,
old
I don't
age
know
takes a
about
toll
that.
too.
No, but that will age
if-
you faster, I feel like.
Doesn't
Of
drink,
course.
That's true.
Various things. Yet again, you could probably find some ways that drinking too much causes brain problems when you get older. But you could also say that, like, maybe if he were the type of person to have a few drinks at night, he would not also carry that other like insanity around with
He
him,
also
which
doesn't.
ages him faster.
He doesn't sleep that much either. I think he said he only sleeps about 5 hours a
Yeah.
night. Which I think we were talking about
does
this on a
look
previous
tired
pod.
all the time.
Yeah, previous episode. How
Well, no, that's just because he's old.
Yeah,
you
but-
can see when he's.
but
when
that
he
will
adjusts
that will
his
speed up your
suit, or when he's-
senility.
When he's golfing, his face doesn't match his neck color. Like, that's not what he looks like. His skin
Yeah.
isn't normally
Yeah, that's
that color.
that's the first thing that really always threw me off about him is how are like middle geographically
being
Americans
fooled by it.
how are they being fooled by a guy who's spray painted tan? I feel like that would stand out. No,
I wanted to make speaking of his voters, like make a distinction between him and specifically what he's doing and people who voted for him, because there were a wide array of reasons why people voted for Trump. And
Yeah, that's
some
true.
of those have to do with like Trump worship, but a lot of them had to do with just like a fuck you vote, I think. More than
a lot of them had to do with just people rather have a Republican president.
enough of them voted for Obama twice.
Enough of who?
Enough
people
people who
Yeah.
made Trump win. Like there was a certain percentage of people who voted for Trump voted for Obama twice.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, but
it's probably a
did
bigger
anybody-
percent than people think.
But who voted for Obama thinking, I bet he could keep the dirty whoever's out better than the Republican can? Like, you don't think that was part of the calculus?
Oh no, I
for
do
people
think
to-
it was part of it, but to say
Like, well, he might be the first black president or whatever, but I think he'll be better at upholding my racist policies than the other guy.
Well, that's what people
well, there's
like about
definitely
Trump,
some
right?
racists who voted for Trump. Trump. I don't think Trump. Like people have been saying after this this Chicago supposed hate crime that it looks like might have been like a setup from the beginning. People are saying like to wear the "Make America Great Again" hat is equivalent to the white hood of the Ku Klux Klan, and that's
Go
like,
on.
what are you actually saying? Like that's obviously you're just like, what are you like? Are you trying to make me just say, yes, you're right, that those two are identical, when like that's just a false thing to say? That's like saying a hurricane is the same thing as a thunderstorm. It's like, I guess if
Are
you
we talking
want,
But
about
it's-
total
it's
tons
useful.
of damage?
or just like categories of like a hurricane's clearly something different, although partly similar to a thunderstorm,
It's more similar than an egg sandwich.
Yeah.
That's
but
true.
egg sandwich is a hurricane
it's useful
too.
in that it's a good
In your
claim. 'Cause
bowels.
I could tell where you stand on things based on your response. Because if you go, yeah, it kind of is, or you go, that's crazy, absolutely not. Most of the time, you could guess that person's politics based on.
I don't
the
know.
answer to
I
that.
feel like anybody
that's true.
anybody I've seen in a MAGA hat, I've talked to a few people, but I've seen way more who I haven't spoken to, just because you'll see them places once in a while. But
whoa, there's people out there.
Actually, very rarely you don't.
They call
I've only
themselves
seen
humans.
I've seen it very
I've seen
rarely
it.
where people wear the hat.
I've seen it
Because I think it's
I've
just-
seen it on shirts too.
It's just maybe they want to go to the post office without getting into a whole thing.
No,
So people,
I think that's why people often do wear that.
I'm just not seeing them. I guess.
Come at me, snowflakes. That's the attitude.
Yeah, well,
I
some
think.
people are
That's
looking
definitely
for
an
that.
attitude,
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
What
Let's
beer
get
are we
back
drinking?
to the
Yeah,
actual
beers.
emergency because let's talk about what that means, national emergency, because this is a democracy,
beers.
which
No beers?
government, like
Johnny's just diving in. Johnny's like, we don't have time to discuss what beers we're drinking. This is an emergency of democracy.
yeah, let's dive right in. We'll talk about beer later.
Okay.
All right, we're drinking beer too, but we started with whiskey. All right, go on.
Yeah, we mentioned the whiskey.
All right. So why do you hate democracy?
No, so the whole point of any government system is how do you divide the power, and you want to do it so things are fair, but also so things don't fall apart. So monarchies are really dependent on the ruler. You have a good king, you can have a good kingdom, a peaceful reign. You have a bad king, a mad king, things get out of hand. So democracy is a direct
Right.
response to that coming out of Europe, or modern democracy, is to divide the power up in a fair way. So we get Congress. I'm just really summing up American history here briefly.
But
so you
it's
have-
worth
you
to
have
bring it back
Congress.
to such a simple thing, because when you get into the weeds of the complicated, you have to have something simple like, wait, what is
Yeah.
this?
Right.
It's
So that's
like
what
Winston
it is.
Churchill
Congress
said,
has
Johnny.
two main jobs, right? Is they levy taxes, levy and spend taxes and spend the money, and then they pass laws. Like that's pretty much their job.
Can't they declare war?
That would be like the laws they can pass would be war.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be necessary anymore for that. We've moved away from that. That was a 20th century thing towards the end of it, where presidents can just announce military actions. It started with Vietnam, and
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
weird. It's a
it's-
weird
it's-
thing. We're
yeah.
technically still at war with Korea because that was an act of Congress, and it ended
we get
in a
on that?
truce or an armistice. It didn't actually end in a treaty ending hostilities. They've just been they've just ceased or whatever. But so and whatever. So now Congress isn't starting wars, and now the president gets to decide where the money goes. So it's really scary. Like we're getting close to and there's
Uncharted
been
waters.
dictatorships before where
Yeah.
there's been a Congress
I don't
or
know
a
what that
Senate,
was.
and they just don't. They're meaningless. Like look at Rome. Caesar didn't disband the Senate. He just would go to them. They'd say something. He'd go, yeah, okay, I'm going to do what I want.
That's what Erdogan does in Turkey.
Yeah, I
he
have the
still
army.
has
A
the
lot of
whole
leaders do.
facade
That's what
of
Putin does.
assembly.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you know what? Like, if what the assembly voted for is something I want, great. Look, I'm so collaborative. But if he wants to just do something, he does it. And then people are like, but he's like, jail.
Yeah.
And then eventually
So-
people stop
Yeah.
saying, wait, you shouldn't do that, because it's like,
Yeah.
And they're like, never
no,
mind.
your N's got higher.
I won't say it.
So we're exactly. So we're not really like a political caste by nature, and I'm just setting this all up because this isn't specifically like an anti-wall, anti-Trump policy stuff,
Or
which I also don't
anti-conservative,
generally agree
or-
with.
yeah.
It's not about that. It's about like bypassing American systems to get what you want, and how un-American that is.
That's the
And
pure
that's why
signal
it
here,
freaked
yeah.
me out to the point that I thought we needed to do an episode.
The signal has little to do with Trump, has little to do with like left versus right. It just has to do with simply like there should be lines in various places, right? You can't drink until you're 21. That's a heuristic. It's a line that says it's impossible to know when a person hits maturity where they should be allowed to drink. So let's just draw a line in the sand and say this is the rule, right? And they did that with government because they know people will take advantage of power and fuck with things. So if you draw a line and say you can't, for example, declare war, that's a really clear line. If you're invading another country, you need to get approval of Congress. But now we changed all the rules on that, and there are a lot of unknowns. You know, can you invade Syria or Iran without Congress's approval? Well, I don't know. What if you just do it? What's going to happen?
There's also so many more options too. as in some of the military intervention that we do. It's like, oh, we just showed up with planes and bombed a bunch of shit. We never sent in ground troops. You hear like, oh, there aren't going to be troops.
That's not war.
Yeah, there aren't going to be troops on the ground, so it doesn't count.
It's tactical.
But it's like, yeah, you can do
surgical.
You can do plenty of damage, and even more damage in many cases by using,
especially now
other
with like
forces,
the technology of weapons we have.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, what happens when there is a space force
or drones?
and you can just say, oh yeah, just kind of point the laser that way.
I think that's how they managed to get away with not needing Congress to pass an act of war, because it used to be, and I think we should go to Tommy for this a little bit, 'cause we're talking history now, society used to mobilize for warfare. You look at all of history, like even modern history, like World War II, the whole American economy restructured for the war effort. So people knew, like, war meant that. Like, even if you didn't go to war, it affected you. Even if you were on the winning side and you stayed home, like it was a very serious thing. And we've turned into this thing where it's just kind of something that happens out of sight, out of mind. We have a huge standing army compared to other armies.
And you know why?
Do you really notice that at home? Like, does it affect your daily life? When we invaded Iraq, did it affect your availability of produce or where you could go or what you could? Not really, except you couldn't really go to Iraq. So that's why they kind of got away with it.
Wasn't that I don't think it was after the Iraq War, but it was after 9/11, I think, and before the Iraq War, how Bush's whole thing.
I always wait for people to say things and I go, oh, that after 9/11, like, but you said after 9/11, I was like, after 9/11.
But remember Bush's thing was, the best thing you can do is just shop. It's the Christmas season. Just keep the economy chugging along. And that's a disturbing way to, as you point out, that, I mean, I have these fridge magnets downstairs and these old postcards of World War II, like recommendations of stop eating so much bread because that's a waste of calories that could be going to the troops, and all these conservative measures of just, there's scarcity all of a sudden because we're in a total war. You have to give up stuff as well as your family.
And you want to.
Yeah, well, you have to, and you should want to.
Let's say, like, World War II, for example, it had a clear, like, it was an ideological battle
good versus
between
evil.
What feels like good versus evil. And of course the Germans
war.
probably had enough brainwashing in their own society to think in those terms too.
I wonder if they thought that they were also kind of evil and were like, but we're badass.
Well,
evil.
there were probably some evil actors that enjoyed it, but like, you can make evil things righteous in your own mind, like you can.
Well, the other problem is a war of attrition. Like, you have to just defeat the enemy's ability to wage war. And if the whole society is mobilized for warfare, it means you have to destroy that society. Like, that's why Hitler was ready to just burn London, because he's like, there's no other way to take England besides destroying it.
Exactly.
And that's not great.
Johnny,
it's not ideal.
Have you ever seen the show The Americans?
No.
I
know it's about roughly. It's about Cold War spies and shit.
Yeah,
right?
so like these Soviet, like, KGB spies that are such deep cover that they're like, they're here since like they're age 20 and they get married and they have kids and they make a family.
Like the NRA girl.
It was called Directorate S, I think.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Which girl?
She was like some lobbyist for the NRA, or she was trying to get in with some lobbyists, people from the NRA, and it turned out she was a Russian asset.
Oh,
she's in
I heard
jail.
about that.
It's like an ongoing thing, but they tried to infiltrate the NRA because it's a big lobbying group.
I think I heard about that.
Makes sense.
Currently ongoing court.
They want to sow discord.
So this show was really showing the show The Americans. Highly recommend it. It was showing like that. Even these people who are living here and making friends here, that the way they keep their ties to Mother Russia, like one of the actors, he was like talking to a girl and she like accused him of something sexist, and he was like, "Love, I'm not sexist, like I worship Mother Russia above all else, Is
that what he said?
Yeah. And
that's weird.
And it's like in the moments where they have to do crazy things like murder somebody that they have been sleeping with and like fell in love with, even partially, they still can murder somebody for Mother Russia. And when they dig into like the whys of that, they have their reasons. They look at the capitalist system that they're living in DC in this case. And
is Russia that great? It's cold.
No, I mean it's horrible, right? But they're showing that people
pretty
have loyalty to the point where they will die for a cause for something that isn't even true. Like they thought
Russia
the system
being
we're
not
coming
cold.
from is perfect, and we need to spread that perfection everywhere. You know?
You don't think army soldiers? I shouldn't say this. You don't think soldiers fighting for a capitalist nation feel the same way?
Oh, I think they totally do. But
They definitely
I mean,
do,
Think
yeah.
CIA spies going and disrupting other countries and stuff are like, yeah, America's the best. We got it figured out.
well,
These
the
people are gonna ruin
question
it
the
if I
question
don't
is not
choke this guy out with a extension cord right now.
The question is not do people have emotions and feelings towards like
I gotta rape this clown and I gotta eat him.
Jesus
I've been told.
Christ.
I'm a CIA handler, and my the director
That
of my
escalated.
department said I have to do it. I can't ask why. I do it for my country.
Well,
I'm
would
gonna
you
rape
do-
that clown?
That's
and
the
then I'm
kind
gonna
of-
eat
that's
him.
Would
the
you
kind
would
of
you
stuff
do
that-
that if you were a CIA agent and you got the memo on your iPhone and it was
No,
it
and in
just
fact,
said,
I think that it's one of those things after you think you became a CIA agent and you've been in the field for a year, that's when your first real test is where they're like, all right, go rape that clown. And if you say no, like, I can't do that, then they're like, we know that's why
the final,
That's such a weird
the
example.
final exam.
it's like most gang initiations are like go to the mall and like stab somebody in red or like
Well, the famous one is the dog one. Boys from Brazil. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
It's like they clone Hitler. Spoiler alert. But they take a bunch of Hitler clones and they raise
like
them
you
up
say,
in this boys'
spoiler
school.
alert after you say they clone Hitler.
Yeah, they raise him. Yes, oops. They raise him in this like boys' school, but they're trying to create like the next great Hitler. Like they're trying to find someone that can lead the masses again. And so each kid gets a boy. Each boy gets a dog, and they have to like take care of the dog throughout all their other training.
there a German
and stuff.
Shepherd?
And then at the end, you have to kill the dog. And if you're
Did
not
Hitler
willing to
kill
take
his
the
dog?
orders to kill the dog, then you clearly can't.
Wait,
work
when
for
did
them.
Hitler
It's been in
murder his
other
dog?
movies. It's like a spy training thing. It's like, all right, yeah, through the 6-week training or 6-month training, like you get a puppy, and then at the end of the training,
they want to see if you're cold enough to do it.
Yeah, as your
Gotcha.
last test, like you say.
So
you're
they're saying they
devoted
let you
and
bond with a
committed,
puppy, and then
Yeah,
they
but-
ask you to kill it
Yeah,
to
but
prove that.
shouldn't you have to do exactly what Hitler did though? Did he?
Well,
Did he kill a
messed up.
dog?
They're trying to make Super Hitler
They're trying to make better Hitler.
I'm not going to go there.
because there's a resistance to Hitler now, so they got to overcome that.
A resistance to Hitler? You mean just the
back
planet Earth?
So
It's like an '80s movie or something. I don't know.
Oh, weird.
So I'm the Chinese official who has just showed up, and I'm gonna fix this rail slip.
If you don't know what a rail slip is, go back and
And
listen to our
by
last
fix
42
the rail
episodes.
slip, I mean I'm gonna slip you past a random thing that happened to me today because I went to the gym and I was watching videos on this emergency signing, and I was on the elliptical, and I was gonna do another 10 minutes and finish this video. Some guy fucking gets on the elliptical right next to mine. There were plenty of open ones, and he
Oh,
goes
boy.
to the one right next to mine.
Oh, boy.
And then he farts to the degree which it was like
Vibrations were felt.
it was like he shit his pants, like that level of smell. And I was in like a particular like sprinting part, like getting my heart rate really up there. And so the first breath that I drew in of the fart was like a full on like face.
Swath.
Oh, and I just left the gym.
You just got off.
I was so furious.
I didn't even get
I was
my
like,
stuff.
I'm
I
more
left it in my
angry about
shorts.
this
My
fart
pants are
than
still
about
there.
Trump.
That's why I switched from Planet Fitness. I'm out.
Dude, it's a rough scene there.
I know. I switched gyms. I was like, I can't do
No,
this.
see, that's why I just go
anymore.
at 3 in the morning when there's one other guy there.
Yeah, but that guy's going to be 3 a.m. farty. Do you really want to deal with that?
No, I mean he's nice. He
Better
just has
than
a
a
lot
Sunday
of face
10 a.m.
tattoos.
party.
Like I
He's a
say, he's
guy.
nice. Like there is actually one farty guy there at 3 a.m.
This guy had
Yeah.
that like 10 a.m. egg
cool,
sandwich
dude.
farty quality.
on a Sunday. Yeah,
You know that dad egg sandwich fart quality? That's what we used to say as kids, that dad farts always smelled like egg sandwiches. But
Because
like
they were.
like
Probably.
3-day-old egg
Yeah.
sandwiches.
because that's what they were. It took that long. When you have 45-year-old dad bod, that's going to happen.
Like what kind of farts do you think Trump has with all those Big Macs that he eats?
You know, I'm surprised that hasn't leaked yet with all the
I think
leaks
some of his
coming out
health
of his
things
office.
have leaked. Like they've clearly
Not
tried
the
to
fart
cover
part.
up part of his health. Like I think
Well, isn't he
wears
in the
big
category
pants.
of
If there's
obese
any
now?
leakage, it'll absorb it.
Because if you count how many inches tall he hasn't actually grown since he's gotten into office,
and how much weight he's gained.
and how much weight he's gained, somebody.
All right, none
I mean,
of
I
this
just
is
saw it
a
as like a
national
random
emergency. We're talking
headline
about how
that
fat
he
he
was
is.
obese.
It's turning
What?
into E! News. Let's take it back to the actual goddamn national emergency.
No, but
that's
Johnny,
happening.
it comes back to the point that he's a liar.
All right, Johnny, take us back on the rail.
all right.
Chinese official
I mean,
Luke
if
says
anyone
that.
watched, so he declared this is a two-parter. He signed a bill reopening the government and funding it, and
Right.
then he just decided, well, I didn't get what I want, so I'm going to reopen the government, give in, not use the shutdown thing to get my money, and then I'm just going to turn around and declare an emergency to get the money anyways, which is not what that is really in place for.
It clearly, with the national emergencies, the list of them that I read beforehand,
there's only like 50 or 60.
But none of them seem anywhere close to like what he's using it for. They're mostly to like cut off foreign funds and stuff to these weird like
or to respond to something that you have to
zone.
quickly. Like Obama did it with the Ebola thing. Like you can't really wait for the next session of Congress. Like it's a virus, it's a contagion. Like you got to address that.
Isn't that Trump's argument?
Yeah, there's an invasion of crime.
But Trump,
it really is his argument, right?
Trump has conflicting arguments because, look, there's a two-part game going on. It's one, should the executive branch have this ability of emergency power, and is that necessary?
Probably.
I'm going to say I don't know, but probably in some cases.
Yeah.
Now, the question is this particular thing that he's talking about an emergency?
Clearly not.
And it's clearly not an emergency. There's no emerging quality to it. It's a thing that's always happened and as far as I understand, is going down generally.
And as far as I understand, a wall literally isn't going to have a
so there's a couple of
net,
things.
like effect in terms of
if it were
what's
to be
being
called
done.
an emergency, you would have to prove that whatever the statistics are of people crossing the border, it's spiking up in a way that's so increasing that we don't know what will happen and what we like. There's this emergency energy to it,
and like cities are being taken over on the border,
something like that.
It would be an emergency, so you could launch troops within the United States to man the border.
Yeah,
like it would be like,
Right.
well, I can't send troops to American cities to take like American cities. That's not legal. Like, or you know,
so we
I can't
agree
invade my
that
own country, but if I'm putting them along the border to protect against an
because
maybe
people
you
like
could, but
actually
that's
went
not-
and
it's not
attacked
that
El
big of a
Paso.
problem that we need to send our army to the border.
So do we agree that he's clearly tongue-in-cheeking, like, yeah, this is an emergency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now-
I feel like he's a CEO who looked at the company bylaws and is like, "What can I use to get what I want?" Well, I found a loophole. Like, I don't care. It's like it's the fact that he's able to do it. I don't think he really understands the implications of doing it.
Having said that, can
You
I
know?
read this Nancy Pelosi quote?
Oh, or as I like to call her, Nancy.
So
Is it going to be about the guns?
in this sort of like, political hypocrisy, card is a very easy card to play in a political debate. Someone says something about Trump and you say, oh, well, did you also criticize that about Obama? I'm sometimes bored by that because I'm like, let's just talk about what the actual thing in front of us is, not like, would you have said if this, but you know.
Well, would you say that if I had brought it up?
Exactly.
Well, would you say it if I said that he had brought it up?
But just to
Would
give you an
you
idea that
have?
nobody that I can tell on the left has even just very honestly and like in an unbiased way criticized what Trump's doing. It's very simple, but this is a Nancy Pelosi quote, and I'm just like, oh, so basically she's saying I agree with this move if it's for my politics, because she said in talking about gun violence, that's a national emergency. Why don't you declare that an emergency, Mr. President? I wish you would, unquote.
Because that's what they'll do now.
I know, but she's basically saying she agrees with Trump. She just disagrees with his opinion about immigration.
I don't
She's
know.
not saying I disagree
No,
with
I
this
think
misuse
I
of
think
constitutional
it's more
power.
political. It's more political than that. She's saying if that's how you're going to play it, then that's how we are going to play it too, because that's the new rule. Like, all right, if you do it with that, I'm going to do it with this. But she's not saying we're going to do it with this. She's saying you should. That's a very planned statement because moderate, some moderate Republicans have said that same thing. Like, don't do that. Even the ones that want the wall say, don't do it because they're just going to use it on healthcare or global warming or something we also differ on ideologically, and we should fight out.
Well, Bernie Sanders already did that too.
Congress.
He already, I saw. It might have even just been a Facebook post, but it was all about how, oh, you think this is a national emergency? Then what about healthcare? What about gun violence? What about environmental
And now what does the
catastrophes
word
right now?
emergency mean?
Well, that's the
anymore
problem, because it's
then?
like clearly, as you were saying earlier, this whole act of being able to declare a national emergency, and it only goes back like 50, 60 years, I think, but it had clearly specific purposes if you look at the list of the acts, or it should have, essentially. But the problem with that is that it also seems pretty broadly defined. So it was kind of followed in the spirit of its own in action of how it was being used. Like that was sort of seemed like the definition of what the extent of those powers were supposed to be, but there was no actual, or there's no clear enough definition where, yeah, if he does it, I mean, is he going to be able to actually do this now before they're able to sue him and stop him? I don't know how long that actually takes in terms of a counter to something like this, right? Because he can start doing stuff right away. In terms of moving money and funds and stuff.
A permanent, like it's going to take a decade to get a wall built at least, right? Even with $20 billion, not just $5. Like it's going to take time.
Well, it's $8, I think now, right?
Build roads and pour cement.
I think he said he's gonna steal like $8 billion now, which is funny because he was originally down to like 5 or 6, I think, or at some point. But now that he's just stealing it, kind of.
Well, he's taking it.
Make it more.
He's taking it from like the military, and somebody at this press conference asked him, like, "Well, what about that money that you have previously said is so needed in the military that now you're going to take from that budget?"
Didn't he accuse Obama of gutting the military? Like, isn't that exactly what he's doing?
Well, yeah, and his answer to that was, I was trying to make a clip of it, but I didn't end up finishing. It was basically like this weirdly like circular thing where he both said the military needs more money and I'll give it to them, and also said I'm taking it from them because some generals, and let me tell you, I'm not going to go into specifics, but they tell me that the money needs to go down there, and then you're like, wait, what? You know, because you just said both things, and I think I figured out.
Bogged down go ahead, finish your point. Sorry,
I was going to say I think I figured out Trump's method of getting through those press conferences.
Lying
is this concept of signal to noise. Like the signal is the pattern that emerges out of something, and the noise is the randomness. He fills his answers with so much noise that you can't even get a signal, and you don't even know where to start in terms of like.
He also doesn't say anything like that point that you just made. But the funny thing about Trump is that you can pretty much quote him without actually knowing what he said, because he never actually says much more. As you
he can always deny
pointed out about, some general
it.
told me I'm not going to name names. Yeah, he can just make that up.
You got no information out of that statement.
Yeah. He might as well have just not said it.
Yeah. I've had a few generals, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's
before
at least
we get, because I want to cover the specifics of this emergency and how weird it is.
Yeah.
And who knows what else he's going to do with it. But
just
the idea when I said he doesn't understand the implications is I think about, you said Bernie already said something, Nancy. What happens if this doesn't get knocked down by the courts, and then, okay, and that's just how it is, and then the next presidential election, people are campaigning on the different emergencies they're going to declare.
Right.
Like, what happens when our campaigns just become, our elections become campaigning about all the different, like, when I get in charge, I'll, unilaterally take care of this problem this way, and then they may or may not do it that way. Like it's not a good way to do it.
Well, they don't even have to promise it.
Dictators is they
people will know that they can just do it now, though.
Isn't it so obvious that when you're taking power for yourself, you should ask the question, do I want this power in the wrong hands? And if you say no, then you shouldn't take that power yourself when it comes to government.
Right.
But like people like Trump, when they're doing this, there's the interpretation of Trump that's out there, and Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, is this like famous guy he's not even like necessarily on the right per se. He's not like a Ben Shapiro that's just kind of spouting clearly conservative ideas, but he's very into the idea that Trump is a genius manipulator and that everything he does is an extreme calculation.
I think he is a manipulator.
I think he's definitely a manipulator, but he's not a genius manipulator. No. And the way I see Trump manipulating,
he's a very stable manipulator.
Luke? I'm sorry, are you the president right now?
No, and that's a fair point. But
that's why I think he's a good manipulator.
If I decided to start manipulating, I'd be president by 2040.
Yeah, that's what you'd be.
No, 20. I could never be president.
Is there even a presidential election that year?
I couldn't do it.
There's too much audio already, Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
never mind like the stuff on hard drives that haven't been released on a podcast.
You can work that to your advantage if you're a master manipulator, though. Anything they play, you should be able to spin it.
There's something called the Thunk Tank beta episodes. It's a folder on our Google Drive.
Why would you tell them? Now they know where to find it if they want to hack
No, it's not like public, but I mean, if you want to hack us,
Johnny,
we'd be happy to be
at this
hacked.
point. Yeah, at this point, Luke can't backtrack if he wants to become president. He's got to go. He's got to lean in.
I'm never taking anything back.
No,
that's my
see,
new policy.
and that's what Trump would do
from being president.
Huh?
Is this a prophylactic leak to keep you from being president? Like you want to rule it out just so you can't abuse power because you know you'd be a terrible dictator.
I think I wouldn't be a dictator. I would have trouble balancing it. Probably, I don't think I could
Luke
handle
would
it.
Be a dictator.
It would just be so much.
I can barely handle when it's like laundry day.
Did you ever see the episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Obama?
I guess I saw like a clip of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
It's really great because it's a great example of. I really like what Jerry Seinfeld tries to do in that because he tries to have a normal conversation with him, relatively speaking, and both of them kind of reflecting upon how weird it is that so many people know who they are and they're so famous and they are so influential, but not in like we're better than everybody way. It's just kind of like, isn't that weird? And he asks him at one point, he says, Jerry says to him, yeah, so when you meet...
You can't have a normal life.
Yeah, when you meet another world leader and you're just staring into their crazy eyes, does it just cross your mind, this guy's he's not even there anymore, the lights aren't on. And Obama laughs because he goes, yeah, he's like, you see that sometimes. And it's clearly what he deals with when he would meet these people who have been in power for 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
And he says, because Jerry asks him, like, isn't that like probably true? And Obama says, yeah, well, the thing about absolute power is, you're in office for 40 years and then, you wake up and your feet hurt and you can't pee and you're just kind of angry all the time. And I'm like, so he definitely got it, like, of how even just 8 years of doing that, I think he was done. Like, I don't think he would have, even if he could have ran for another term, like, would have wanted to, because he talked about how, it's like
I
exhausting.
think he's the perfect example as a president of showcasing the fact that take a good man, and not even a good man can do that job with some moral perfection.
Yeah, you're not going to do it perfectly.
Okay, all these drone attacks. Obama had like more drone attacks than any other president.
Well, he was the one who really,
how much collateral damage.
He was the one who really ramped it up. The
exactly.
whole drone program,
but it's like
he
what
ran
if he
on
thought
transparency, and then a lot of whistleblowers got prosecuted.
Well, I'm not. I mean, like, besides all the negatives, I'm just trying to say, like, I bet if you were to have an artificial intelligence try to figure out the best paths forward of how to navigate that job.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a job as, like, manager of a CVS, there are going to be some rough points where, like, someone you hire shows up drunk or something.
Yeah, you're gonna realize, oh, that was a big mistake. Should not have hired him.
Right, but as the president, you have to make decisions. Not, do I hire this person who's a convict, but they seem like an honest person? They're gonna be like a stalker of the shelves or something.
But at least Obama clearly he clearly read the Constitution.
I am Lothar, stalker of shelves,
because he studied law. Whereas Trump, what has Trump studied about the U.S. government? What does he actually know about it?
Well, so
I'm not even sure he understands.
It's Trump's disrespect of the process.
He doesn't.
Most disturbing.
He doesn't
right?
know the Bill of Rights. I guarantee you, he doesn't
on.
know. If you gave him a quiz of the Bill of Rights, he would fail miserably. I would bet all my money.
But it's
and that's not much.
Joe, you nailed it already in your Seinfeld story. It's that he's been doing this for too long. He's been an executive for a company that he owns, which it makes you that you're a dictator. So he's had people scurrying and running around and just like, I want to do this, figure it out. We're doing this, whether it makes sense or not. Can I do it? He's had his lawyers. Can I or can I? Not should I? That's not the question.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So he's been in that position of power for like you said, for 40 years. Now his feet hurts and he sees stuff on Fox News that makes him angry. So he just tweets about it. Like he can't help but be like this because this is him. This is just how he's lived his life for too long.
And he can't
pivot to being
older
like a presidential
and
type.
Less, like when he was younger, if you watch his speeches, there's an amount, I won't say the word eloquence, but like there's a fluency to his speech. There's there was even like a softness to it.
Yeah, I would want to listen to that because now that you mention it, like
I'll actually find it on YouTube and play it in a second.
I haven't heard many clips of him, going back many years now. Everything I've heard him speak of is in the last like 10 years, the last decade or so, because that's sort of when he first started. I mean, he was talking about getting involved in politics, I think, going back that long ago.
I just want to give you some staggeringly odd quotes from the early on in the speech too, just because it's hard to sit through all 50 minutes. So these are some early. This is like 6 minutes in, and he's talking about his El Paso rally that he just had on the border there.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that.
He goes, I asked them, let me ask you as a crowd. Hold on, this is direct quotes. I'm not paraphrasing.
That's the best part. Yeah, just read them like you're trying to read a real sentence.
I asked them, Let me ask you, thee as a crowd, when the wall went up, was it better? You were there, some of you. It was not only better, it was like 100% better. You know what they did. So there's actually a lot there. I've read that a bunch of times now.
It's like poetry.
Yeah.
It's kind of like reading
thee as a crowd, 'cause he asks,
academics, right?
He asks a cheering like mob, basically. What do you guys think? You think this? Okay, like literally mob rule, mob mentality. Like that's how he's making his.
Yeah, weren't they attacking the BBC there?
This is him telling the story of I riled this crowd up and I got them to agree with me on something. So that's that means the wall's good. And then he says, you know what they did. I don't know if that's saying what they were doing before the wall went up, or how good of a job they he says things vague like that. So you're like, was that racist? Was that xenophobic? Was that just bad grammar? It's really hard to pin down, and it's the noise thing. You can pick out any signal.
So much noise, no signal.
So he can talk to. I hate when they use the term dog whistle, but he's really good at that, talking to his base by talking past regular, not his base.
Well, there's in any one of his little thought farts, there's going to be something that his base will recognize and respond to and go, yeah.
And here's just another great example of how he's just out of touch. He goes, you can't talk about human trafficking, which I think is that part of that confrontation with the reporter. The argument is that they come through ports of entry, which means they come on ships, they come on planes, they come on boats. They don't run across a desert because that's the hardest way to come across generally.
They just take a plane and then just don't go back.
They put them on a plane and say, oh, we have your brother, we're going to kill him if you don't report to this place in Atlanta or wherever when you get off the plane. And they just, you don't want to get killed, so you do it. So you can't take human traffic, women and girls. You can't take them through ports of entry. You can't have them tied up in the back of a car or a truck or a van, because that matters. That was me paraphrasing. Sorry. I should stick to his quotes so you know that what's his. Can't have them tied up in the back of a car or a truck or a van. They open the door and look. They can't see 3 women with tape on their mouth or 3 women whose hands are tied. They go through areas that have no wall. Everyone knows that. Uh-oh. Looks like we lost our Skype call. That's how rough this episode has been. We can't even keep a signal, or who knows? Maybe this is them shutting us down. The man is trying to keep us down, man. They
Johnny,
just can't
you're back?
help themselves, man. Hey,
has he been talking this whole time?
I saw it went down, so I pivoted. I filled the space.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear any of that last speech?
No, not at all.
Not much of it. It cut out.
All right. So you can't take, let's start over. You can't take human traffic, women and girls. You can't take them through ports of entry. You can't have them tied up in the back of a car or a truck or a van. They open the door and look. They can't see 3 women with tape on their mouths and 3 women whose hands are tied. They go through areas that have no walls. Everyone knows that. Nancy knows it. Chuck knows it. They all know it. It's all a big lie. It's a big con game. So
what does that have to do with the wall?
This is the Hollywood-esque, so removed. This guy, I'm sorry, but he grew up rich. He never worked in a mailroom of any company. He's always been a director or CEO of something. So clearly he doesn't know how it works. He thinks, oh, yeah, you would just run away if they don't tie your hands together. There's so many ways to coerce human beings that are self-interested in their own survival.
But what does that have to do with the wall?
The human trafficking is way more pervasive than just, we threw a bag over her head and she woke up in another state.
Also, as far as I understand it, most drugs come in through ports of entry.
I would say more so than if you put up a wall in the desert. It's easier to go through a port of entry, right?
Well, here's my other thing I was wondering is if, let's say the wall gets built and it works and he's got a 3,000
But what does that mean, work? Work to do what?
Nothing gets through. They figure out the tunnel problem, which they can't.
The perfect wall. Okay.
Yeah, the perfect wall gets
a magic
built,
wall.
right?
Because you could have the version of this argument with the conception of the perfect wall. And say, leave all the wall problems aside. Let's just talk about
the wall is a concept.
So hold on. Let me just say, there's a perfect wall, right? No more drugs can come across that border. Now, if you're making billions of dollars a year shipping drugs in, wouldn't you just buy a ship full of shipping containers and ship it up to Canada and then come in through that border? Wouldn't we just have to build a giant wall there and giant seawalls? Like the profit motive is still
Johnny,
there.
The seawalls
people
will
are
come later,
just go around.
but you're not getting this. The seawalls will come. We have to do seawalls.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have to wall the entire country.
I want to put a wall around the moon too. That's what I'm going to run on in 2040.
And you'll be able to do it when you win with emergency powers. And
right now there are no walls on the moon.
Yeah.
I just need to find like the Rick and Morty like duo. Like if you can.
That's
find
the great thing about the moon,
like in real life. Yeah. To actually.
That's what's great about the moon. Though you only need to build one wall until it runs into itself, and then boom, the whole thing's walled.
He's like, well, if you make the wall of like this special element, it'll just keep growing.
Yeah, you gotta get one of those growing walls, Morty. Self-sustaining.
By the way, if you're listening to us and you don't watch Rick and Morty, please watch that show. It's amazing.
Give it a chance. It's pretty
my
great.
God, I've been rewatching it. It's so fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's layers.
If you don't like it, also you probably don't like us, so it'll save us all a lot of time.
Yeah. There are some correlative factors here where if you don't like something that we say or really like something that we say, it will continue to work one way or the other, most likely.
Yeah.
So
but that speech was almost an hour of just paragraphs.
I couldn't listen to the whole thing.
I almost watched all of it because
I tried. I couldn't do it.
Johnny, you had texted us Thursday night, and you're like, "Can we do an episode tomorrow if Trump does this thing?" And now it's 2 days later, but I had it in my mind, and when it popped in my phone, I was like, "Let me just start watching it." And I was in bed. And I realized I haven't watched a Trump press conference in about a year and a half.
Oh, really? That long?
I don't have cable. I very rarely find it. I've already
he doesn't do that. He wasn't doing that many. He was using Sarah Sanders and Twitter for a while.
Fair enough. I just mean I haven't been tracking it. I think his rambling has gotten worse, and although there's all these constitutional problems, you could say
it's absolutely gotten worse. Yeah.
The thing that most offended me was that we think he's a sane human. So let me just play the CNN clip from the press conference so you can hear. It's rambling. It's disturbed.
Insanity, dude.
It's like he's not even being evil. He's just being partly random.
I think it's what you're seeing is the breakdown of a person in terms of just their cognitive abilities. It seems pretty clear to me. I don't know how this isn't freaking more people out than
we're not doctors, so no one cares.
I don't know. I know some doctors and anybody in the medical profession who hears him speak, they say to me, they're like, yeah, this isn't how you should normally sound.
I didn't end up finding the Trump speaking while young, but I almost want to say the clip I remember seeing. I'm almost wanting to say eloquent, but not quite eloquent.
No, I know you mean. But also in comparison to how he speaks now, pretty much anything that he used to say probably sounds eloquent.
Yeah, that's true. It was more the contrast probably. Anyway, this is the CNN guy he asked maybe a 45-second long question.
You are fake news. Sit down.
Well, he picked on the CNN guy and was insinuating that.
Didn't he say, "Here we go"?
Here we go. Yeah. And so the CNN guy was basically stating the stats that you used in your speech just now were not true.
Wait, just play it.
No, this is not the part I included because that got kind of long.
Okay.
But the fact is, Trump just put a lot of fake statistics in his speech too.
Right. Because why wouldn't you?
Because why not just ramble and say
hold
things?
Hold on. Yeah, I have one right here. So I said he goes, the wall works 100%. Literally the next line, he goes, take a look at Israel. They're building another wall. Their wall is 99.9% effective, they tell me. 99.9%. That's what it would be with us too. The only weakness. So he says 100% and the next sentence changes his own arbitrary number by 0.1.
Oh, it's just a colloquial saying, Johnny.
It's what?
It means really good.
Yeah, Johnny, you unstable genius, you.
He's like, well, so it sounds like he gave multiple numbers. 0.9, that sounds real. They did a real study and accounted for the error or something.
It's like no, they were just smarter than you to say, oh, actually nothing's 100%, but it's 99.9% effective. Whatever that means when you say effective.
Right.
I'm not even sure what that means either, but.
So here's him telling the CNN guy, stop it, you're done.
Fake news. Loser.
Look at our federal prison.
I believe in facts and statistics.
Okay,
and data,
any more quick? Let's go.
Let me just ask you this. What do you say to your critics who say that you are creating a national emergency, that you're concocting a national emergency here in order to get your wall because you couldn't get it through other ways.
Moms, what do you think? Do you think I'm creating something? Ask these incredible women who lost their daughters and their sons, okay? Because your question is a very political question because you have an agenda. You're CNN. You're fake news. You have an agenda. The numbers that you gave are wrong. Take a look at our federal prison population. See how many of them, percentage-wise, are illegal aliens. Just see. Go ahead and see. It's a fake question. Yes,
it's a fake question.
So that's scary for a few different levels. First of all, he just yeah. When he goes, I believe in facts. He goes, I'm not interested in those things. Like, just finish up what you're saying.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was kind of like bored with that angle. Yeah.
But so the angel moms, if you listen to the whole speech, he brings them up a few times, and it's a group of I think moms that like kids or husbands died from from illegal immigration related like illegal immigrants killed their family member. So that's a real problem. I don't know if it's a national epidemic. People die from vending machines falling on them. I mean, if you put the families of those victims in the room when we're trying to talk about vending machine safety, that's kind of a cheap trick. So he immediately just goes, you're creating a national emergency. And he was like, oh, I got him. He's like, you tell the victims that I paraded out here as a prop.
And you can hear in the background
speech,
woman.
He even says, he's like, oh, talking to an angel mom, stand up. And like he did in his State of the Union before when he like invited the wife of the dead soldier, was like, stand up, and everyone had to clap for her for 5 minutes. It's like he loves to do that to try to put a human face to these issues that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. It's parading something around for his agenda.
He's not unaware of how useful it is to speak to the humanity in people and get their emotional.
But it's so
appeal.
funny to me that it's so clear that when he figured that out, or whoever he was working with, he said, yeah, get some of them. That will be good. Like he wasn't thinking about it as like, this is going to be, this is like, we need to do this. And like, these poor people have suffered and we should really showcase their suffering to really, make people understand. He was clearly thinking or said, yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, we'll get some of them.
He goes, I met a new one. There's new ones with us. He goes, they've been with me since before my campaign. And he said, there's a new one here.
A new one.
And he made her stand up. He said, stand up. He's like, her husband just died in Maryland or something. And she's like, and now their kids don't have a dad to come home to them. I said, that's too bad.
God.
Like, that's his connection to the average.
That's what I mean. Yeah, there's not an actual connection of human emotion.
Your husband was killed horribly? That's too bad. Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah.
But I can see that if I really agreed with him, I could believe it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, he can easily spin that to... Like, those are real people.
I'm not sure what will happen in 2020. Let's put it that way.
2020 is such a wild card right now. I mean, there's so many candidates who I think there's so many people right now who have as likely a chance to wind up running. There's nobody that I can see who's a real, like, clear front runner that stands out to me.
Here's the problem.
Like, I have no idea where that's going to go right now.
I'm definitely more critical of people on the left because, like, if I were to ever compare them to criticizing a candidate on the right, I'd have to be honest to say, well, I was never really considering voting for Trump. So like my criticism of Hillary was a little bit more vicious because I was actually on that side and being like, really?
I feel like the
I'm
right
on your team, and I
feel like the right in general has always been more on the same page than the left, and I feel like
the left is fragmented.
I feel like that's their problem right now, and I think it's a much bigger problem than people are giving it credit.
And I think the internet and social media has skewed,
and they need to become on the same page.
Thing out of balance.
Like, you're not going to beat Trump if you're on different pages and you're pushing different things, and the message is murky. That's not going to work.
And
in
I
2020.
think it's the nature of the viewpoints, though. If you're a conservative, you're trying to conserve things already in place. So it's easier to point to something and say, that's what we want. We want prayer in school or whatever it is, or we want the guns we already have. It's harder when you're the liberal person or progressive. You're trying to introduce, now fuck that, we're going to do it this way. We should be doing this instead of that. Let's try this. Like, you got to sell people on it. Well, so it's harder because now you agree. Well, you're arguing with each other on what the new thing should be. So there should be a place for both in a good society. So you're not just going off the rails constantly trying new shit every minute.
Yeah.
But you're also not so stagnated that you can't adjust or adapt. But Yeah, a lot of people I think it's no, one or the other. Like the whole country should be one or the other in my perfect world, whichever side you're on. It's like it doesn't. That would
you should be
bad
scared of
for
anyone
everybody.
that conceives of a perfect world without suffering, because it's like, one, either they're a super genius, or two, they just haven't thought of a lot of possibilities.
I mean, it's a good thing to strive for. You can strive for it while you still don't think it's realistic. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I think you want to strive for something that's better. I don't know if
I think it's better to strive for something that's not perfect, but
saying
achievable.
a perfect world is you have to ask, well, what does that actually mean? That's a great question to
Does
ask somebody
perfect mean no suffering?
Yeah, somebody who has a
probably
very
not.
clear ideology, whether
We,
it's
the
left or
people,
right.
in
All right,
order
what does
to
that
form-
perfect world look like to you?
Yeah.
Right? And is that actually achievable?
I love asking that question when I think like, whoa, I'm about to get into an argument with someone. I go, what's your perfect solution to this problem?
Yeah, what would be the end
just,
game?
I just want to like figure out a lot about their thinking from that one question, and I'll know not to go places. Like me and you both know someone who, in person.
Well, because there won't be a clear answer, and then you say, "Oh, if I get into an argument with this person, I might not lose, but it's going to be unpleasant because there is no clear direction that they're headed in.
Yeah,
because they haven't thought through what the actual end result is.
They define themselves as anti-something instead of defining themselves as this is what I am. And when you're anti-something and you don't understand the thing that you're anti, like you're just everywhere. Like,
well, you can be anti-something, but you got to be careful about it.
You know? Like there's no unified, as far as I can tell, the noises coming from the left are not unified under like liberalism or personal freedom anything.
It feels very
big.
Mixed, yeah.
And free speech used to be like a leftist thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like weirdly confused.
Would you say though?
Yeah, definitely.
The left, I think, is divided on the reaction to this emergency. A lot of people, I feel like, are like, that's so wrong. Like we are kind of freaked out by it, but there's got to be some people that are like, great, we can do something about gun control and climate change.
They think
there's some
we'll
people that want that box
and then
open.
We'll
you're right, because I think, like you said earlier, Johnny, how Nancy Pelosi, I think she said it more tongue in cheek, but also warning Republicans that you are opening the door, like that could very much happen in the future.
How about you don't speak tongue in cheek when
but
you're
there's also our liberals who are definitely on board with, yeah, great, we are going to do that as soon as we get into power.
Just
and
like
Congress says, like, no, you can't just give everybody free health care. You have to pass that through a law, and we'll just be like, what? It's a national emergency. People are dying. Like, let's just do it. We're just going to do it, and it's just going to escalate from there. It's like, all right, a wall is stupid, but $8 billion is nothing compared to
Supreme Court pick.
tens of billions of dollars for other policies.
If he gets a pick with a year left, they're going to block him the way Obama got blocked. That's the new order.
That's the new norm. Yeah,
right.
It had never been done before. And the fact that Merrick Garland got blocked, he was a moderate judge, would have been approved by both sides probably, and it was just like, no, we're just going to block, and that's why they were like, no, we're going to block him, and just
no, they just didn't. They just didn't do it, right? They were just like, yeah, there's no timetable on when we need to do this, so we're just not going to do it.
That's something I hate in political arguments.
Not on our agenda.
People will say, oh, well, starting with Mitch McConnell, the Republicans did this, and it's like, okay, there's the game theory part of it, like what should you do to accomplish what you think is right, but there's also, you have to respect the game enough to, like, if the rules of the game don't mean anything, then the game's over. If we're playing hockey and I just start, like, peeing in the corner and I'm like, this is worth 50 points, like, that's not a game anymore.
No, but here's the difference, Luke.
No, it's more like basketball where someone does an alley-oop and they go, you can't pass a shot like that. It goes, why? There's nothing in the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
An alley-oop is where you throw the ball, you pass the ball, like, chuck it near the rim, and then a guy jumps up and grabs and finishes the shot. And the first time they did it, they're like, that's not a legal play because no one had done it. They're like, well, it is. There's no.
But everybody can do it now.
But if you were?
It takes away from the spirit of the game, which is a shooting skill game.
That's my point, is that the game has now just changed, and to not then use that to your advantage.
To change,
but to not use it to your advantage, then you're not going to win.
That's if the rules change, though. But what if you, as now the Democrats get power in 2020, let's say, and they have the chance to do a gun control version of this,
right? Yeah,
and they say, unlike our predecessor who didn't respect the Constitution, we want this legislation passed. We think it's an emergency. but it's not the kind of emergency that this emergency power was for, and I will not use it for that, but I urge members of Congress to please vote for my...
Build that wall around the guns.
That's a threat, right?
No, it's not necessarily a threat. It's saying that by principle, I will not
be a threat if that's an actual tool within your repertoire now?
No, I was saying the opposite, that they were saying, I respect the Constitution too much.
No, but I'm saying they're probably going to do it because why wouldn't they? Like why? Like what moral high ground are they gaining?
They want to try to sleep at night. If
I don't think you're in politics if you want to try to sleep at night, dude. You've seen House of Cards.
So then there's the problem but
that's always been politics.
Do you think it's the majority of people in politics are the kind of people that don't share the kind of morality we have? Like,
what do you mean in politics? Like at what level? Because I think it matters
Congress
at what level.
And up.
Oh, I would say most of them are snakes.
That's a
you
problem.
You think most people are snakes?
Most Congress people, yeah,
snakes
definitely.
Who have the ability to look like
absolutely.
Mammals.
Congress people, absolutely. I would say it's better on a local level.
That's probably why there's snakes behind the cameras, especially, right?
Oh my God! Look at Ted Cruz.
In their private lives, like when it comes out.
Oh yeah.
You find out that there's
it's like of course you're not a normal person.
Of course you send pictures of your penis.
Yeah. What else do you do on your Saturday afternoon?
Or when Ted Cruz accidentally an aide accidentally tweeted out incest porn. Remember that one? Because that guy talks like the most condescending pastor. I care about the American people.
Right.
It's so like drippingly condescending. But you're supposed to run for office if you feel that the politicians are totally immoral. That's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, that's what most politicians run on also is the argument that, Washington is corrupt, politics is dirty. This is what Trump ran on. And then he just brought in all his own filthiness.
He ran on Drain the Swamp, right?
Yeah, that was his whole thing. Like, I'm not a politician. I'm going to get rid of all this nonsense. I'm going to do what needs to get done. And of course, he hires these other lunatics. And I don't know. I wonder. This is actually an interesting point to look up as well. What is his turnover ratio in his own sort of circles compared to other presidents? Because I don't.
It's astounding. His cabinet turnovers.
Yeah, because it's got to be. Because part of me thinks, all right, well, the media is hyper focused on him because there's so much to focus on.
Dude,
so maybe we just see it more.
Stuck it out for another year after an illegal war was declared.
Exactly.
It's not that bad.
I feel like I would like to know the actual numbers because I would imagine that. All right, there is a lot more media coverage about it, but it definitely seems as if his turnover ratio is out of control. Like, look, is there anybody left from when he started?
Is the media a little bit more unfair to Trump than other people? Probably,
but the question is, do they have to be?
But is there enough material?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it's what I'm saying. A lot of it is true, and again, it's the signal to noise thing. The signal would be Obama gets caught in a big lie. That would be the news story of the month.
Yeah.
Trump gets caught in a big lie. It's like, so what? He lies all the time. That's just a base reality that we've accepted. And it's like, okay, that's not news anymore because news is something new. It's something unique.
Right. And that also is sort of
time. Then whatever.
That is sort of the quote unquote brilliance of Trump, right? Is that he's so
you could say that
he is very good at making so much noise that there are stories that come up about Trump where I'm like, how is nobody I talked to knows about this? Did I tell you the whole story with the moon landing with Trump? How it came out a couple of weeks ago. I forget, in the New York Times or something. But I think this was his first year at like 2017, maybe in office. He was waiting to go on a Skype call or something, whatever they used with the space station astronauts, and they were prepping him, and he was with a couple people from NASA and a couple of people from his cabinet. And he was talking about like, like this is what they're doing. They were trying to brief him, and he just switches gears and says like, yeah, so when are we getting to Mars? And they were like, I don't know. We have plans to go back to the moon in the next decade, and then Mars by like the 2030s. And they said he kind of looked at him, or he kind of looked at them like, what? And then he said, well, I kind of want to get this done by the end of my first term. Like, how can we make that happen? Like, I'll do it, within my first two terms, but I want to get it done by my first term, ideally. Like, how much would that cost? And they just looked at each other and turned to him and said, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's impossible. And then he thought about it.
Mars won't be in the right spot.
No, the worst part is that's what they were saying. Like, you actually can't do it just because of astrophysics. And then he said to them, well, suppose I wrote you a blank check
He was literally asking them to move the heavens and earth.
He said, he's like, what if I wrote you a blank check? And they said, excuse me? And he said, yeah, how much would it cost to do? Just tell me the number. Like, I could give you the money. Just tell me the number. And they just looked at each other again because I guess they thought, like, holy shit, is Trump about to give us $100 billion to go to Mars next year?
What if we just say yes?
Yeah,
and now our budget is.
But they clearly knew like awesome satellites.
Oh, the technology actually
Christmas party.
Yeah, doesn't exist yet. So they said no, it's not going to happen.
Mugs.
And he was like, oh, and then they just went on the press conference. They ran out of time. But that was his thinking. Oh no, I'm not
also,
asking.
They're like on the space station.
I'm not
it's
asking.
Like wrong time for that.
I'm not asking how it can be done. I'm asking how much money to get what I want.
Because there's certain people that think anything's possible because the human spirit
and if you have enough money
or whatever,
you can buy the human spirit with
his is because there's a money amount. Everything's possible because if you just have enough, it might not be worth it. But if I throw enough at it, I could do it. I could wall off Mexico. What's the amount? It's possible.
Yeah, I just need an amount.
And I found that answer to your question, Joe.
Which one?
His cabinet turnover is unprecedented. As of January 8th, he had 12 changes to his cabinet out of 24 posts. And the next highest at this point in his presidency was Bill Clinton with 6.
Wow.
So he's doubled the second highest, which was the highest.
There's clearly a lot to be said about the fact that the people around him either don't want to work with him and/or can't work with him. And this is what people have said who have left the White House. They've talked about this, how he's unmanageable in terms of just trying to work with him.
Listen to this. In fact, by January 8th of the third year of the previous 6 administrations combined, 16 people left.
Wow.
So that's hard. That's a little complicated, but it's saying the last 6 presidencies at this point it was almost the same amount of people if you combine them all.
So what do you attribute that to other than what I just said about how he's clearly he's not somebody that you can cooperate with, it seems like.
Not only is he unreasonable, but I was reading this. I don't know how true it is. I hope it's not, but it seemed true, is that he makes people sign non-disclosure agreements when they join his administration.
I've heard that too, but I don't know from where, so I don't know.
Okay, if you're a company, but no, you're a public servant. You're not supposed to be having secret conversations with other public servants. That's outrageous. If they're doing illegal shit and then you quit, you shouldn't go to jail for calling them out on that.
Yeah, it's a little sketch. I don't know, man. I'm kind of excited for the next election cycle. Because it's really going to heat up in the next year, but
it's getting hot.
At the same time, I feel like it's going to be madness for the next 2 years.
Tommy, jump on the mic.
Yeah, let's get. So we have in our studio audience today. We have young Tommy here.
Jump on till he gets back.
Tommy is a historian. You may have heard him in our Rage of Empires series on YouTube. So
I want to get some historical perspective.
Yeah, Tommy's our resident historian, and he's in our studio audience actually today as well. So. I'd be curious to get Tommy's take on this. So what do you make? What do you make of the whole situation of an executive of the American people using emergency powers to do everything that we just said?
Well, it is certainly unprecedented that we've ever seen anything like this.
I like how Tommy's such the soft-spoken voice of reason.
His NPR voice.
It's been a little bit of madness, but I mean, you guys have been.
So, what would you do specifically to solve the problem?
Hold on. More than that, Tommy, what have we missed so far?
Yeah.
What do you think we're missing the point on?
I guess the fact of how many people bought into it. I mean, just the culture we have in America now. It's for the last century it's been very consumer based, and it's hard to explain, but a lot of the values he stands for really call out to that, and that's in most of the nation. So a lot of people were able to relate to him on a deeper level than you would just.
You mean just by being heartless consumerists?
Correct. That's an aspect of it, I would think.
Yeah. Well, that comes back to what I was saying earlier about George Bush, how and it worked. He said, yeah, this is how you do your patriotic duty. You go out and shop. Just shop and keep your head down and keep working hard.
That's what really
making
got
that
me
money.
Thinking when you said that point.
Yeah. Oh, it's so sickening. I beach cleaned too many hours today to not be sick.
That's probably the toxic melted plastic powder chemicals you're breathing in.
Oh, it definitely doesn't help. But
no, Joe, don't you think it would be better for everyone if you? How many hours would you say you've spent beach cleaning?
Like ever?
Yeah, total.
I mean, I picked up 1,000 pounds last year of plastic. I don't know what that translates.
How long does it take you to pick up 1 pound? An hour?
No, I usually pick up 15 pounds in about 3 hours, so that's 5 pounds an hour?
5 pounds an hour, and you did 1,000 pounds. Oh, gee. So 200 hours?
Can you do the math?
Now, if you spent 200 hours trying to figure out how to make a device to clean a beach better, don't you think that would have been a better use of the time?
You want me to invent the cotton gin of beach cleaning? Wait, that's the wrong example.
Well, we had a bunch of
But you see what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying, though. No, I see your point, Johnny. And there are
a bunch of hobo Joes.
But I think something like
plastic with a special rake or something. I think that'd be awesome. Is that what you want?
I see your point, Johnny. I think my point is that people need to know that there isn't one answer to things, right? I mean, beach cleaning is a good example, but I think a lot of things in politics, right? And this is what Trump does with his wall. Yeah, we'll build a wall. We got to stop the problem. Clearly, that's not going to stop whatever he thinks, whatever he's referring to as this supposed specific problem. But I think as well, if you think about the example with beach cleaning, I know I'm not going to go out there and solve the plastic pollution epidemic by picking up however many pounds of plastic. That's not going to make a difference. But it is something, and I can sort of talk about that and, get other people involved. And one of the people who came down today actually was a local legislator, and she was talking about these, policy initiatives that she was working on, and she, wants to try to, just do what I'm doing with social media and, spread awareness and stuff. So, these small things you can kind of build up from there. And it's, the other alternative is with a situation like that, sit on Twitter and just yell about plastic pollution all day. And it's what is that really accomplishing? And I feel like we see this so much in politics too, where people sit on Twitter and they yell, again, like we talked about earlier, asking, what is your perfect world? What is your ideal world? There's not a clear answer to that, or there's not a clear path, a clear solution to getting there either.
It's very tricky. I mean, we live in a world that's very different than it was 20 years ago.
But Joe, what if you could declare an emergency and everyone had to come help you beach clean?
Oh, I am so on board now.
Would you do that?
I'm all about eco-fascism at this point, by the way. And if we need to declare a national emergency if that comes up, I am so on board. Because fuck it. He's going to get his wall. I'm going to get the plastic. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a wall around that plastic. Because why not? Yeah, I'm playing your game, Luke. I'm hip to you.
Can we talk about the?
I have so many things I hate about that
Luke's
statement.
Can we talk about the Green New Deal? Johnny, if you have more to say about the specific constitutional shit with what Trump did, I'm down to talk about that.
Well,
I also think it's worth talking about the failings of the left and why people.
I know you do.
Should we save that for Drunk Tank, the Green New Deal?
We should totally do a Drunk Tank right after this. Let's just wrap this up. Yeah,
let's do Drunk Tank Green New Deal, because I have a lot. As an eco-fascist, I have a lot I want to say about the Green New Deal, and it's not all good.
I have one more quote from Trump that really scared me. Well, two more. They're all scary, but I have two more quotes I want to cover, and then we could wrap it up. I'm not hanging up. These are real quotes. I see you guys scheming over here. Let me get my goddamn quotes in. Stop ruining episodes.
We're on camera.
I did too.
I'm literally just scheming with Joe. We're all right, when he's
literally hunched over the mic right now, scheming.
I see him do little hand gestures, get to the mouse. No, screw you. You can win this one if I get my points across.
Okay, go ahead. Get your points across.
I'll give you the win.
Oh, well said, Johnny. You care most about the points, not about winning.
Tom, I turned off my mic.
Yeah, right? See, I gave myself the moral high
Tom,
ground.
my mic's off. Be ready, okay? He can't hear us.
Tommy, take your shoes off, take your socks off, and get ready to hit the mouse pad.
When I put my third pair of socks on, that's the signal.
All right, Johnny, read your quotes.
So he was talking about... okay, so I'm going to be signing a national emergency. This time it's a national emergency. Before it was just national emergency. I'm going to be signing a national emergency. It's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents from 1977 or so. So if you're invoking powers specifically to your position,
to abuse them
highest, and you're planning on using them, you should have a little more than since 1977 or so. It gave presidents the power. Oh, that's what he says. Sorry. It's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents from 1977 or so. It gave presidents the power. That was the sentence.
It gave them the power.
I remember that sentence. I remember I was laying in bed and I was like, oh, God, and I sat up a little bit.
And then he says this, he goes, there's rarely been a problem. They sign it. Nobody cares. I guess they weren't very exciting, but nobody cares. They sign it for far less important things in some cases, in many cases. Didn't really say anything at the end there. But so that's this was the I just want to get my panic over what he's doing across as like not a Democrat, what do you call it? A lower D Democrat, right? Like I want to live in a democracy
just
type
as
Democrat.
like a very reasonable person who is extra concerned with this than like many of the other things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not like giving him a pass on all his weird, like racist, sexist stuff either. I'm just saying this is stuff that like affects fabric of society type stuff to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, then he rambled about the angel moms for a while, and then he starts talking about the drug deaths and how he doesn't believe the drug death statistics are accurate. That there must be way higher. He talks about all these horrible drugs coming through the border. And he starts talking about fentanyl, which is a weird thing to bring up because that's made in China. Like it mostly all, I think, comes from China. So it's like, how's a wall with Mexico going to stop these Chinese drugs? But he's saying, I was talking to the president of China about their drug problem. And you could tell he was like thought he was quoting the Chinese president, but he was speaking kind of like you could tell he wanted to do a Chinese accent so badly. I wish I had the clip. You guys should go back and listen to it. But like he's saying, he goes, do you have a drug problem? He goes, no drug problem. Like, he says it like that.
Yeah.
And then he goes, you have a country of 1 billion people. You don't have a drug problem? He goes, we give death penalty to people who sell drugs. So he says, we give death penalty. Like he says it with like the cadence of a non-English, or he tries to. And you can see the look
Trump
on his
said
face.
It like
he's
that?
like, yeah. You can see the look on his face. He's like, don't say the accent. You're quoting a foreign leader. Like he tried on that.
They like clearly coached him. Be careful, dude.
We give death penalty as fixed to to people who sell drugs. End of problem. What do? We set up blue ribbon committees where men and women sit, they eat, and they dine and waste a lot of time. So if we want to get smart, you can end the drug problem. You can end it a lot faster than you think. So the implication there is if we just start killing drug addicts and drug dealers, like I'm pretty sure if you get caught doing drugs in China, it's also the death penalty.
It's probably not great.
So it's like you just want to kill anybody that's ever done a drug. That's most people, I think.
It's kind of like my weed policy in Turkey. I just go, not going to smoke it. Not interested.
How's that related at all?
I'm saying, like, if I were in China, I would have the same policy.
Trump is making, like, Duarte level threats to, like, yeah, maybe we should just kill drug dealers.
Well,
that would deal
like,
with
the difference is he's not making a threat in a way that I actually believe that he's intending this from deep down. He just says shit. I think it's more senility than anything else.
But he's asking for the power to go to that office. The next guy might be... Yeah, I see what
you're saying, Johnny.
Healthcare.
He is eroding the filter that is between.
He's setting it up for the next maniac who isn't senile, who's like, yep, I'm going to...
Who is actually like the next guy, who turns out to be like more like Putin than Trump.
Yeah, thanks for putting all this horsepower in this bad boy. Now I'm going to really let it run. Yeah, that's not what we want.
I would say Trump is definitely like a big part of the guilt of...
And then last end of the quote was the penalty is death. So that's frankly one of the things I'm most excited about in our trade deal, because he said he got them to agree to do that to fentanyl, to make fentanyl the death penalty in China now. And he's like, maybe we should do it here. That was totally the implication of that whole thing.
As if the death penalty should ever apply to something
nonviolent crime
murder.
Like that. Yeah. And then he said China's going.
The argument
he said China's coming here next week.
For murder, maybe, like, depending on your position.
Yeah, you can go back to a solemnistic reason.
And then he started saying China's coming here next week, and then we'll be going there, and then the president will come here. And it was like, wait, so China's coming, and then the president's coming separate. China's a person in his mind. He's like, yeah, China's coming next week.
Yeah, it's one China, John.
So that was all my Trump quotes I thought I could handle. There's more worth sharing, but that's all we can really do.
Let's say, like,
so you can hang up on me now. It's fine.
Not yet.
I'll just say that, like, we should do a quick drunk tank and, like, get really rowdy with it. But Trump's definitely guilty of what we're just talking about this whole time of making reality hard to understand. The noise is higher than the signal. But the left is, whoever started it, I don't care. It's not a 5-year-old fight. It's like, what's the best path forward? Not who started it. They did this, so we should do this.
Yeah,
the
it's
left
tricky
is
in
equally
politics.
guilty of not making sense, and they operate on principles that are contradictory, and you don't know which ones apply where, and it's just confusing. So if you want to make sense, you have to make sense, and people can respect if you make sense. And I don't see anyone doing that in politics right now. And the terrifying part is when someone like Trump makes a big decision like this that goes against something deeper, not just the politics day to day, but something like the Constitution, which is like underneath us all. And we think like the to and fro and the waviness of like day to day political life is like, whatever, we're grounded to the Constitution. When you start fucking with that, like, things are different.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So that is the actual preamble to our Constitution. I knew they were going to hang up on me, but I wanted to get that in the episode. Because if you actually read that over a few times, it's why that document's important. Because it's saying, this is our intent, is like where this document is coming from, is to try to set up a fair, balanced system with tools in it to resolve things and to address unfairness and problems and stuff in a certain way. And I just don't think this recent national emergency by President Trump is really in the spirit of that. So that was my main issue. Now you can hear the jackasses giggling about hanging up on me. But thanks for listening. Sorry this one's serious, and we talked over each other way too much, but that's what happens with politics. So don't listen to this during Thanksgiving or we'll ruin dinner for the family, I bet. Thanks again.
Fuck you and your Constitution, Johnny. We win again. That's what,
he was so gonna hang up.
That's what, like, 3 episodes in a row?
I could see it. You know what his plan was? His plan was to make us think that he actually wasn't hanging up by keep rambling, and we'd be like, oh, he's actually going into a thing, so let's not be jerks about it. And then he would hang up.
I honestly thought he wasn't going to hang up. That's why I took, because if he hit...
He was about to. Yeah, no, he was about to. I'm just saying he waited longer than he normally would, because it's a game of chicken.
But I think he also wanted to say what he wanted to say. That's why I knew I had a chance if I reached forward, I could do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Joe, congratulations to us both. We've won, what is it, 3 in a row now?
It's all of them.
He was having us for a while.
See, I'm just saying things now because that's
good.
what Trump does.
We're good.
Yeah, we've won all of them. You can go back and look. Go ahead. They're out there. The files are there.
We're there.
Fake news.
No, what are you talking about? I don't buy into that.
I just want to give you know what I want to say? I want to actually say that I think everybody needs to sort of sit back and reflect internally, like we talked much about in, I guess, our upcoming episode that we didn't record before this one about anger.
No, Joe, that was last week.
And God damn it, Luke. And, sometimes the best way to reflect is to just sit back, crack a cold one and enjoy a lovely Sand City IPA, or perhaps a lovely Bellport Brewing Fireplace Bay milk stout with cold brew coffee and vanilla beans. Is that refreshing? And if you're not in the mood for that, then why not try a lovely Hawkbill Indian IPA by Burial Beer?
And if you
That's
really
some
don't agree with
beer.
Trump, take a shot of whiskey and then...
I don't know why I'm plugging these companies.
I thought you maybe got a sponsor. That's what I thought.
I did get a beer from... Actually, I do want to give a shout out to them. Bellport Brewing. They gave me this Fireplace Bay. It is a milk stout with cold brew coffee.
That was our first beer?
Yeah, it was really good, right? And what's really cool, too, is that they brew it with locally roasted beans, too. And so they're super fresh, the beans. They're, very freshly roasted. Delicious. It's probably the best, I would say.
The best.
It's fantastic.
Better than what they get
Stella.
May I say, China.
Exactly. So shout out to them if you see them around Bellport Brewing. Really good beer. And it's cool. It's one of those breweries, too, that they're doing different stuff. Like I tried their Hefeweizen and their, what did they have, an IPA. And so they're... Meckerweizen. So it's one of those breweries that's doing a lot of really good beer, but a diverse spread. So we didn't get to really talk about beer much on this, but yeah, I think
Trump doesn't drink beer.
I know, that's part of the reason. That's the first reason I hated him.
All right, let's call Johnny back and do a drunk tank. Yep. Go to patreon.com/thunktankpodcast. I think at like the lowest tier is $1 an episode, and you'll get to hear these little like 15, 20-minute drunk tanks that we do after an episode.
It's basically what we were just doing, except louder.
And it's also a little bit more unhinged. We take a little more risk.
I mean that literally as well as figuratively. Yeah, louder.
Because we know if you're already donating $1 to us per episode, then you probably won't be offended, let's say, right?
Well, you might be offended, but you won't care as much about being offended.
Also, you'll know how awesome we are.
Which is kind of way more important. Like, I don't mind if you're offended. I mind if you mind that you're offended. Like, being offended is okay. That's fine.
Like, I was offended by Trump's speech. I'm offended when I'm lied to. I don't like it.
Yeah, but you don't then go around and take it out on me. That's a huge difference.
No, I do.
Well, you should try harder because I don't feel upset enough. I don't feel offended enough.
Let's call Johnny back and do that.
All right, like, share, and subscribe.
Thanks for listening.
See you in the tank, hopefully.
Bye. Oh, Tommy, bye. Say bye.
Tremendous podcast. Goodbye.
Cut it.